Hi, Carrie.
Hey, Jake.
I feel like you and I have some things in common.
What would those things be?
Well, one of them is that we both love reading young adult fiction.
This is true.
So one might even say that we love YA like crazy.
Oh, groan. But yes, we do.
Yes. You picked the title.
I did because I love puns, but I hate puns.
That's fair.
This is problematic, Jacob.
As is the book that we read today.
So we read a book.
The book that we're going to talk about is named Vivian Apple at the End of the World.
It's by Katie Coyle. And Jacob pitched this book to me as Left Behind for Atheists.
I did.
And that really piqued my interest because how awesome is that? I am a non-believer.
As am I.
And it's really, it would be like, oh man, it's really nice to have a book about us where we're the center of the universe and
that's right.
We're kicking ass and the book blew.
Wow. Jumping right to the chase. Yeah. So we're going to spoil this book. Yeah. So I guess when I've been thinking about this book, and so I told you in advance that I didn't like this book.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure that it was actually a bad book. It might just be my weirdness. So I feel validated now that you didn't like it either.
I'm glad to be of service.
Because it won an award of some kind. And there are plenty of people who love it.
I mean, good for them.
Yeah. People like what they like. It's fine. But I was sort of thinking of it in connection with another book. This is a post-apocalyptic novel, or it actually starts during the apocalypse in a way, I suppose. And I was sort of thinking of it in connection with another book that we read, Unwind.
Which is one of my, favorite dystopian novels ever.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And that, they have very different premises, but the premises I feel like are kind of similarly crazy. In that one, it's like this whole thing about how abortion is illegal, but you can take your kids in when they turn 13 and have them taken apart for parts. It's a real crazy, strong premise.
Yeah, it's this super, super upper, really, really uplifting. But it's a really, really interesting and I think really, really well done book with that whole fucked up premise of taking your kids apart for parts.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of different characters that sort of illustrate different aspects of the society, which this book also does. And then they kind of travel around and see different things, which this book, I feel like they're kind of structurally and conceptually sort of similar, even though the basic concept is different. But I just liked Unwind so much more, and sort of thinking about why is I feel like one of the interesting things.
Okay, so let's talk about why.
Sure. So the characters. What do you think about the characters in this book?
I think they're really one-dimensional. I think we don't know a lot about them. We hardly know anything about the main character, Vivian Apple. And maybe part of that's because she doesn't know a whole lot about herself. But we're not really given a whole lot of information. She's not really interesting. Her friends are not all that interesting. There's no reason to give a crap about them.
Yeah, there's the kind of romantic male lead, this guy Peter. He's just not, there's just not a lot of there. There wasn't any, I felt like there wasn't really any reason for me to care about Vivian and Peter and their budding romance. And that takes up a lot of the book.
It's the whole friggin' book.
Pretty much.
I mean, he's literally in the first chapter and she tries to flirt with him.
Right. That's true. And yes. And I guess, so Peter, it turns out, is the son of one of the big muckety mucks in this church that has taken over America, and it's, predicted the apocalypse, and then everyone, wow, man. summarizing the plot, even like the first 5 pages of this book is turns out is a little crazy. So the way the book opens, and again, this like sounds like a great beginning for a book, I think, is like Vivian Apple is at a party. It's the night when the apocalypse has been predicted by this sort of splinter evangelical church, kind of a little bit sort of maybe like the Mormons or actually I feel like even more like kind of evangelical than that.
Yeah, I would say if it was like that crazy Westboro Baptist Church got really big.
Yeah, that's actually that's a better analogy.
And then like took over the whole country. I mean, women need to be subservient. Everyone thinks that they're going to be raptured. They really don't like the gays.
They don't.
So yeah, I would say if Westboro got huge and took over everything and had their own clothing line.
Yes.
That would be Vivian Apple's world. And so she went to an end of the world party. And that sounds like an awesome way to start a book.
Right. And then she goes home the next morning and her parents have been raptured, apparently. Right. There's holes in the ceiling where apparently they've been bodily assumed into heaven and they're gone.
They have left her, enough Church of America brand rations. So they haven't completely abandoned her, but they're gone and she's not.
And what else did they leave her?
They left her a sledgehammer.
They sure as fuck did. Yeah.
and let me just tell y'all, I was like, there's a new sledgehammer. It still has a sale sticker on it. Oh, it's got some fucking white dust on it. Oh, and there's holes in the ceiling. I wonder if that's drywall plaster. Guess what, y'all? Drywall plaster. I'm not a dum-dum.
No, and I feel like a lot of the plot stuff is kind of like that, where, like almost, Peter is at the party and we don't know anything about him except that when Vivian criticizes the church or something, I forget exactly what she says, he is turned off by that, and like immediately okay, they're going to meet up again. He's going to turn out to be related to the church or someone in the church who's really important in some major way.
Of course. I mean, of course.
Yeah, and that doesn't pay off until like 2/3 of the way through the book.
And even when it does, you're like, that's not really a huge twist.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for some like really like gut-wrenching twists.
It's not a big twist, and as I think about it, it doesn't really matter. Like, would the plot be different in any material way if he weren't related to, what's his name? I don't really think it would. I
think they might not have had a reason to go back at the end.
That's true.
I think they're going back for Twoo Wove.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so yeah, the premise sounds awesome. You're like, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world, but there's no Happy Jack farm, so who gives a shit?
Right. I mean, and they're sort of, they're kind of is supposed to be. So Happy Jack Farm is from Rewind, and it's like this super creepy place where the kids get sliced up, essentially. And here they end up at this kind of ranch where the founder of the church is holed up, and it turns out that he and Peter's dad poisoned everyone, and that they're pawns of these 3 capitalists who run the business arm of the church and have made a ton of money.
Yeah, so we're assuming that frickin' Taggart are somehow drugged.
Oh yeah, Taggart, that's Peter's dad. Yeah, and the thing about, so why is Happy Jack creepy and this not? I mean, it's a little creepy, but mostly I don't know. I just thought it was super dumb.
I wanted it to be creepier than it was. I mean, it could have been so much creepier. They could have walked in, they could have seen nobody, and like all of a sudden, they show up on the monitors, like all these, figureheads talking at them, and like that could have been cooler. Like it could have been scary because it's, it's this huge cavernous room with all these opulent chandeliers but there's nobody there.
Right. And the fact that they're still there, I mean, I don't really know why they would be. Like, how does that help?
No.
So there's a one point towards the end where Peter gives a little speech and he says, I don't believe it, Peter says, shaking his head. I mean, I do. Of course I do. The corporation, the Church of America Corporation. I think he just told us himself. People began to listen to him and then the angels appeared. They told him to make it more about capitalism. Peter starts laughing, although it's clear he doesn't find this very funny. They built up this company around him and used him for free marketing. They sold magazines and guns and survival kits and life insurance. All the believers believed him because of sheer luck. Bad things happened when he guessed they would, and because the corporation kept him for far enough away that no one would figure out he was crazy. And when it came closer to the Rapture date and they realized everything would fall through when it didn't happen, they made it happen. And when I read that, I was like, no, I agree. I don't believe that either. That makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense, especially if you consider all this stuff that had been happening as well. I mean, the weather is fucked up. Things are weird. So there's something, so, oh, you've got this creepy stuff. And it's just like a corporation made a hurricane happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
How are they making this happen? So there's a lot of I don't believe this. Okay, is it just so happens that global warming is so bad that the weather patterns have gotten fucked up and so the church can use that to control people? I don't know how to parse this.
Yeah. So there's a sequel to the book called Vivian Apple Needs a Miracle.
So the thing about this book is that I realized it was not a trilogy, it was a duology.
The author has said that it's just a 2-part series, that there isn't going to be a third book.
And I was just like, how are you going to finish this the way this book ended in just one more book?
Because this is something we should talk about because just the premise of the book is so appealing to me. Just the idea of Left Behind is which I admit I haven't read, but Left Behind is sort of these action adventure books where the rapture comes and all the, and it's kind of what the believers who are left behind think about it all and what they do and so on. And so I was really kind of excited about this idea of the rapture happens and the non-believers are left behind and they're like, I still am not convinced that this is real. Something weird is going on here and I want to find out what it is. And that is just such a cool premise to me that I read this book and then I didn't like it very much. And then some time passed and then I was like, well, I should check out the sequel because maybe it's better and maybe it'll explain a few things. So I started reading it and then I was like, oh yeah, no, I remember I didn't like the first one very much. And now I kind of remember why. And so I don't.
So you never finished the second book. You only read a bit of it.
I didn't. I have trouble finishing anything that.
Okay.
But
I was going to say, so, how could you start a book and not finish it? Was it that bad?
I just was like, I don't know that I'll enjoy this.
I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, but I think I do have to read it because I like to see things through to the end. And I really want to know, where are you going with this? This doesn't make sense. This could have been so great and it's not. So why isn't it? So I have to see it through. I got to read the second one.
And maybe some of that stuff is explained, but the way it begun kind of annoyed me. So this book, well, talk about how it ends.
How does it end? It ends in so many different ways.
I guess what I could say is there's been this kind of tantalizing story of Vivian Apple's older half sister who she didn't know about until during this trip across the country from the East Coast to California.
Yeah, and it just so happens that Vivian Apple, all of her family is still around somewhere. Everyone else is gone or crazy or whatever. And it just so happens that Vivian Apple keeps finding new people.
So her sister, Winnie Conroy, turns out to be in San Francisco. So they go to her house
she knocks on the door, and there's her mom.
God damn.
Drying her hair. Just like, you're like, what the fuck?
The Rapture didn't take.
The Rapture didn't take. And you'd think, like, I don't know, like, I wanted there to be so much more to that. Like, you know, the mother was not a believer. But no, the mother's still a believer. She thinks it's okay that her husband's just been raptured and she's next. And she doesn't give a shit about Vivian Apple at all. So that's where, Vivian Apple has the worst parents. And her sister's kind of a dick too. And, she's like, well, you're the one that mom wanted because she was the result of, the mother's wild teenage years. And then she was given up for adoption while Vivian's parents were getting together, and he was saving her in so many ways. So she's like, well, you're the one that mom wanted. But Vivian Apple's like, are you sure?
Right.
I don't know if that's correct because I have no good memories, and looks like neither do you.
Yeah, and it kind of seemed like she disappeared on me and had no interest in getting back in touch.
Nope.
Unlike some sisters I could mention.
Somebody did call once, but we don't know who.
Right.
I guess now we have to assume it was the mom.
I guess.
But we don't know for sure. It's just when she was in New York, the phone rang once. It was New York, right? Or was it when she was?
Yeah, it was New York.
Yeah, so she was at her grandparents' house in New York. They'd come to get her. They were non-believers. And things were okay-ish, but then she stole a car and left.
Yeah.
Realizing that she needed to go find out what was going on. But yeah, so the whole thing with Winnie, I wanted that to go somewhere too, and it didn't. Like, it didn't even set up the possibility for going somewhere. It just kind of was like, so that's my sister. She blows. Cool.
Right. And then she takes off.
Yeah, and now we're wanted fugitives.
Right. And so it's kind of set up as like the tone of the ending is like, okay, so Vivian Apple has sort of been wanting, at the beginning of the book at least, was wanting like this kind of, basically wanting things to get back to normal and wanting this sort of secure kind of family thing where she would be safe and not have to make decisions all the time.
Oh yeah, I think the whole book is about her wanting family.
Right. And so at the end she's like, no, my family is not the people who raised me or who
are related to me.
Yeah. It's the people who I care about and who we take care of each other on the road, which is her friend Harp and Peter. And so they're going to go off and try to rescue Peter. And so it's like this kind of triumphant moment, of character development for her. So the way that the next book begins, I don't feel like this is spoiler since it's the beginning of the book and I don't remember anything that happens after it, is that whole decision immediately turns south. Like they go to get the car, but the car has been stolen. Then they're sort of like, oh yeah, and your hand's broken and we should probably get that taken care of. But how are we going to do that when we're wanted fugitives? And, it immediately kind of turns that moment of triumph on its head in a way that I thought was kind of like sort of interesting, but also a little bit of a little bit of a bait and switch in a way or something. I don't know if that's quite the right word. Anyway, so let's see.
We need to talk about the new Orphans.
The new Orphans, which I feel like is another situation where I liked the idea, but then was kind of disappointed with the execution. But let's concentrate on the idea. What's the deal with the new Orphans?
So the new Orphans, they're, a bunch of either atheist kids or kids whose parents have been raptured and they are now alone. So they are making their own community. And you're like, this is awesome. That's exactly what, what Vivian wants is her own community and her own family. but they're pretty cultish themselves.
They're super cultish.
So she goes to the one in New York, and it's all like drum circles. And then she Peter, through, I guess, Twitter, knows this one guy who's in the middle of like this believer stronghold, and he's got his own compound, and all these people are just like following him because he's taking care of them. There's food, there's shelter, there's water. Everyone is safe. And so these little kids and bigger kids and everybody, they're all part of a family. And so it's just like, wow, this is where, this is great. This is where you should be. This is safety. But it's really creepy. And like immediately Harp starts like screwing the leader of this organization.
Yeah. Goliath is the
because everyone is supposed to take on a new name.
Yeah.
When they get there, or when they sort of join. And it's just like, okay. That's really grandiose. And they're in a a presidential wax figure museum?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, at what's it called? Mount Rushmore.
That's right. Because all of the major monuments in the country are now religious sites. So like the Washington Monument, Mount Rushmore is the biggie. They're all religious.
Yeah,
which is odd, but also not odd. Like the more I think about it, I'm just like, damn it, this is the future with Pence, isn't it?
Like, this is the weird thing, is like this book should be more relevant than ever in the age of Trump, I feel like. In the age of Trump and Pence and all the freaking stuff that's going on. But somehow that didn't make it like it more.
Yeah. Like I kept thinking, like the whole time I'm reading this, I'm thinking about Pence, and I'm like, oh yeah, fuck. But it still wasn't captivating in a way that it would have been. I think if she'd written it today, with some of that undertone, like it was, somehow it was Pence who was the enforcer. Like that would be fucking creepy. And I might be digging it because it scares me so much.
Yeah.
But the way it was, I was just like, nah. I don't even care about the enforcer. Like Taggart's supposed to be this scary guy who enforces the religion. I'm like, how? I'm not afraid of him. Like I want to be freaked out by this guy when I finally meet him, and I have no idea what he's really done other to enforce.
Yeah, I think maybe how that was supposed to work was that we meet these people who have been kind of the big bugaboos, who have been the big scary people in the entire book, the big antagonists who supposedly are controlling everything. And then it turns out they're not in control at all. Taggart is completely comatose and has no lines at all. And then the real people in charge are these mysterious capitalists that show up on a movie screen. And I think, again, that's a thing that could have worked, maybe.
Yeah, and the fact that the capitalists were the ones on the movie screen just didn't work for me. Like I said, I wanted it to be like these guys on the movie screen.
Right.
Like I wanted it to scare me. I wanted to be freaked out, and nothing in this really scared me. And I think it should have. I think this is a fantastic premise, and it should have freaked my shit out.
Yeah.
But it didn't, and I wanted it to. I love it when a book freaks my shit out.
Yes. So we've been super negative so far, which fair enough. We didn't like the book. I wanted to point out a moment that I liked, and maybe if there's anything you liked. This is me trying to be positive. So one thing I did enjoy, I was reminded by the new Orphans thing, is like later on when Harp is saying, I think the new Orphans might be funded by the Church of America, which duh, right. And she says, like, one of the things is just like he had so much cocaine. Like, did I tell you that how much cocaine he had? And Vivian's like, no, you didn't mention that. And I just thought that was funny. And also, like, that was like a moment where I was like, yeah, of course that kid, of course Goliath would be a total cokehead and probably is getting it from, yeah. So I just, that was a little moment that I enjoyed.
I liked Harp in general. I thought she was a good sidekick.
Yeah.
Because, I guess Vivian Apple said a couple of times, like, that she was always the sidekick to Harp's, big personality. But which we've never really seen her be the sidekick.
Right.
So it didn't feel like tables turned for us, but I really liked Harp in general. Like, I think she was a little more three-dimensional than Vivian was. I mean, like, her getting drunk in the back seat of the car and her, mourning her brother in a way that Vivian doesn't really mourn anything. She feels sorry for herself. She feels sad and weird, but we don't see her like mourn any of these huge losses that she has in her life.
Right. Like, for her, she just is kind of obsessed with Peter, and that's more or less, kind of pushes everything out, I feel like, which could also sort of work if it were explicitly a way that she was distracting herself from these other terrible things that have happened, but it didn't really come across that way, at least to me. So it just seemed kind of empty.
So the relationship with Peter, I think, was a weird one. I think a lot of it I felt was actually believable.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
If you're going to be, I guess, a 17-year-old girl with a sledgehammer, like, you're going to fall in love with that cute guy that's in the car. And you're going to become sort of obsessed with him.
Yes.
Really, really fast. And so I didn't find it unbelievable at all. Like, as someone who has once been a teenage girl, like, yeah, this actually was written well for me. I know you didn't like the romance, but I totally bought it for what it was, because I was like, yep, she's going to be making out soon. Mm-hmm. She doesn't necessarily want to be making out soon, but this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I did think that Harp would get pregnant with Goliath's baby, and then they'd have to figure out how to get an abortion in this new America. That did not happen. But I kept thinking it would.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens in the sequel where she figures out that she's pregnant, but I guess it's been long enough now, because they did spend a bunch of time in other places. Anyway, completely going off topic here. I don't even know if I ever found the topic.
I don't know. There's a lot to talk about, and yet there isn't a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm like, there's just, like I keep saying, like, I wanted it to freak me out more. I wanted to be afraid of the Church of America. I wanted to understand why people were so drawn to it. I think that would have made it really, like I said, a much more interesting book if we knew, like, why people were drawn to it, and also what Vivian Apple didn't see in it. Like, what was she looking for that it couldn't provide? Because it seemed to provide a whole lot of everything. It provided magazines, books, movies, clothes, a whole new Bible, a whole everything, the Church of America TV show, the Church of America, rifle range. I mean, it was literally everything. So I wanted more of that. I wanted more of the why. Like, why were people actually drawn to that? Is it because they had no other options? We knew why Vivian Apple's dad was. He lost his job and he felt a little adrift. But why was everybody else drawn to it? Not everyone joins the Westboro Baptist Church. So what happened that made other people? And they said, like, oh, some stuff, like there was a natural disaster and it made people sad and scared, so they were drawn to the church. But I don't see it.
Yeah.
So I guess I needed the church to be more of a boogeyman than it was, and I just didn't care. So I'm like, why are you even bothering with any of this? Like, none of this matters.
Yeah, I think my complaint is a little different, because I also wanted to know more, but like, for me, the book is like, we start with the apocalypse, and then at the end, we should get an explanation of the apocalypse. And so I wanted people who were I wanted protagonists who are like invested in that, or at least one of them should be invested in it and should maybe, it's okay if some people need to be convinced to go along or whatever. But I just wanted that to be kind of the focus of the book. And I never, like, there's so much of it that doesn't really have anything to do with that. Like the whole interlude with the grandparents, the like mystery of the half sister who Vivian has never heard about before. Like the interludes about, Catholics can be nice people. There's a little Catholics can be nice people interlude.
Yeah, that was weird.
And so I wanted there to be more of like a line from the beginning to the end of the book about what's the deal with the apocalypse. And I also wanted the solution to how did the apocalypse happen to make sense. And I didn't really get either of those things.
Well, maybe you have to read the rest of the second book.
Maybe I do. Maybe I'll take another whirl at it.
I don't know. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read it because I do need to see it through to the end. I hate cliffhangers almost as much as I hate not being freaked out. So one thing I did find interesting was when she did finally meet Beaton Frick, who was the leader of the church. When she did finally meet him, she's like, oh, it's not that he's like a charismatic guy. It's that he is batshit crazy.
Right.
And it's not that he's a believer. She's like, he is the believer. He actually believes all this. He's not trying to sell this. He believes this. And that moment I was like, oh, is this going to freak my shit out? Because I liked that. I liked that moment. I thought it could have been a little freakier, but I liked that. And I also liked that she broke her hand on his face. And I hated that Harp was like, oh, you're beating on an old man. I'm like, yeah, you are. And you know what? She should have done it to both of them.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments in this book where the characters just sort of stop and lecture each other. And that was one of them.
Yeah. I'm just like, no, you keep beating. You keep beating. These people literally probably murdered a whole bunch of people. Maybe 5,000, maybe 2,000. We don't know the exact number. And we're assuming that they're dead. We don't know for sure, but we're assuming that they're dead.
Yeah.
We were told that they were poisoned and burned in a makeshift pyre. So we're assuming that they're dead. They have not been raptured. So, spoiler alert, nobody's been raptured, y'all.
Yeah.
Everyone was told to, well, not everybody, but some people in the church were sent a letter. Each church branch had like a number of people that they could invite or said that they were their best people. And they got a letter in the mail that says, like, don't tell anybody, but like show up here. And so they all made this pilgrimage, except for Vivian Apple's mom, who's just like, fuck this shit, and ran. So you're thinking, oh, she said fuck this shit and ran. Like, there's got to be a good reason for that. But there's no good reason for that.
Yeah, the motivations are weird.
So it's just that she likes to run away. Is that her only motivation? Is that her only thing that she does? Is like, oh, Vivian Apple's mom just likes to run away.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because then Vivian Apple does the same thing at the end.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Vivian Apple doesn't have anything to run away from.
Right.
I mean, she can't stay with her mom and her sister.
No.
She can't stay with her grandparents. She can't stay with her aunt. She can't stay with any of these people. She could stay with Wampog, or however the fuck you pronounce her name. But she really can't. So, I mean, the only choice she has is to get back on the road.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I feel like my mild attempt to turn things positive. Well, no, we found some good things to say.
You know, there's one other good thing to say.
Sure.
So when they were first on the road, the first place they stopped was a place called Burger Party.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was a little burger joint on the road, and they stopped there, and they saw someone they knew.
They did.
And this I found lovely. I thought her character was fantastic. This super pregnant girl working behind the counter. What was her name again? Was it Edith? Edie. So Edie, super pregnant, super religious. And she decides to go along with them.
Yeah.
She's like, I could work this job and have this baby and get raptured, or I could go on a road trip with a bunch of atheists. Let's go on the road trip with a bunch of atheists.
Solid choice. And she ends up with the new orphans.
She ends up being like the mom of the new orphans, and she chooses a new name. And I thought it was really cute. But I also liked that got wrapped up. And so they didn't have to worry about like having a baby on the road and having to deal with that. And I was like, okay, thank you, author of this book, for giving us this delightful, happy person and also making her go away.
Right.
But I liked her. I thought like that was a really nice thing, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was, of course, the first time that Peter and Vivian like were able to talk to each other without talking. So, you know, there's that.
Right. And the book specifies that she doesn't go to any of the orgies.
Yet.
Well, right. Right. You wonder what happens with the new orphans. Maybe you find out in the second book.
You know, I think after that baby's born, she might be getting her freak on, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, that seems, that's yes. All right. Is that about it, do you think?
I mean, there's so many things that happen in this book and so many things that don't happen. And I think the things that don't happen are the things that I want to have happen.
Okay.
I want it to be unwind, basically.
Right.
Like, I think about the scene in Unwind where you finally see or are with a kid when he gets unwound.
Oh, yeah. That was like the creepiest thing in the universe.
It was so scary. Like, I am a grown up. I am not getting unwound. This is not real. I am terrified.
Yeah.
And I needed something creepy. This is a really creepy premise, like having all these people disappear. And why did they disappear? And you know the apocalypse isn't real. You know that, you know, they didn't actually get taken up to heaven. But how did this corporation like mastermind this event? Like, I wanted a little more clue. I wanted some, like, not exactly insider info, but like when we saw the sledgehammer with the dust on the end, I automatically, immediately was like, oh, the parents knocked holes in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so I knew, okay, this is all a setup. And I wanted more Easter eggs throughout the book that sort of I could maybe get a little hint here and there of something that's happening, like how this corporation did this. You know, did they find this huge wind turbine somewhere? Or, you know, did they find some like explosives at the bottom of a dam, like to flood the valley? I don't know. But I wanted something that made it seem like these people aren't actually magical.
Right. And like, and then the like prosaic answers that they give don't, you know, like the question of what happened to the raptured people is that they all took a plane to California. Or at least 300 of them did. There's like 2,700 people that are unaccounted for. First of all, like that seems, for the amount that the world freaks out, 3,000 missing people doesn't seem like very much.
Yeah, not at all. Like, how do you even notice that many people missing? Like, yes, it's one, you know.
Particularly since apparently they've been going away for over the course of like a month or so. It's revealed at the end. But then also, I mean, it's also a lot of people in terms of keeping a secret, you know?
Yeah, and plus, like
none of those people.
Like Vivian Apple's parents, they left on Rapture night because she was at a party and she'd seen them before. So they left on Rapture night. Like, there was no one else at the airport seeing a bunch of people besides like the one person who mentioned on a, like one flight attendant mentioned something.
Right.
But then immediately shut up and retracted. Really?
Yeah. It's weird.
And it's just like so many coincidences that just bothered me. Like, oh, of all the 200 people that actually went to the compound, one of them happened to be Vivian's dad. And one of them happened, you know, I don't know. But of course, it would be a story if, you know, everything didn't happen to the main character. But
yeah, I mean, that would be
that would be super boring.
But that's also, I mean, you know, there's a sense in Unwind where the characters really kind of are just sort of random people. Well, whatever. I should stop comparing it to Unwind.
It's hard to stop comparing it to Unwind. Even Connor, who was like made into this huge, like larger than life character. He was just like, I was just a kid who didn't want to get unwound.
Right.
I just ran away because I was scared. And I got lucky. But he wasn't ever like, there weren't all these coincidences that were like saving his life. It's just like, I just got lucky. But for Vivian, it's just like, oh, you just happen to have your mom here. Oh, you just happen to see your dad's file. Oh, you just happen to meet all your relatives. And all of them suck. Anyway, so that's Vivian Apple at the end of the world.
There it is. Enjoy. So
if you want to read Left Behind for Atheists, write a different book.
The thing. Well, right. Yes, write a different book and send it to us, and we'll read it and hopefully like it better.
I will read your fan fiction.
Yes. So, this next book that we're going to read is one that you picked or suggested.
It is one that I picked, and it is one that I suggested. I really like this book. So we have both recently seen A Wrinkle in Time.
We did.
And we've both read A Wrinkle in Time. We did a podcast about Wrinkle in Time. Mm-hmm. So we decided to read a book that's has A Wrinkle in Time as one of its themes, sort of.
That is very exciting to me.
It's a really good book. It's heartbreaking. It's beautiful. I'm just, now I keep forgetting like what it's called.
When You Reach Me by Rebecca Stead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you meet, when you find, when you reach me. It's a really good book.
Short.
I think you're going to like it a lot. I think it's not exactly YA. It's maybe more middle grade than YA, but there's, I think, more adult themes in it that, could be older middle grade or younger YA. But I think it's a beautiful book. It fucked my shit up in a good way.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that.
And it takes place in New York in the 70s, and the main character likes A Wrinkle in Time, and also stuff happens.
I like those things in books. So let's see. What else should we say? I want to thank the Sentimental Favorites for letting us use their song.
Hey Now.
Hey Now. Thank you.
Hey there.
For our theme, I want to thank Shaenon K. Garrity for designing our icon, which is great. And so we're the member of the Ear Trumpet Audio Network of podcasts, and a bunch of new podcasts got added to the network recently.
I know. They're really, really cool. So would you like to say a little something about this?
Sure. Podcasts such as Beckett to the Future, in which the TV series Quantum Leap, they go through it an episode at a time, except the order of the episodes is the chronological order based on where Sam Beckett leaps to. It's confusing, but I'm going to be a guest on it in a couple of months. And it's fun.
Oh my gosh. My love for Quantum Leap is endless and boundless. So this is one that's really exciting to me.
And what else have we got?
We've got Can We Cult? They talk about cults, fringe groups, charismatic leaders who scare them. But funny?
Hey Meg, are you terrified when you see a large group of people dressed in the exact same outfit?
Usually. Al, are you strangely intrigued by the idea of wearing linen to appease alien overlords?
Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself sucked in by documentaries about cults from the 70s?
Absolutely. Do you like your podcasts with wild but educated speculation?
If you've answered yes to any of these questions, check out Can We Cult, hosted by me, Allie.
And me, Megan. We're two cheap wine aficionados / best friends living in Portland, Oregon.
Sure, we have some formal training listening, and we do work in social services, but we got our real knowledge about cults from documentaries, books, Reddit threads, and again, wild speculation.
Every Thursday, a new episode full of scary, sad, and hilarious stories with a whole lot of heart is released.
You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Overcast, as well as on all social media platforms at Can We Cult.
Join us, won't you?
I've been listening to it and enjoying it. We've got Hunting Houses, which is about the TV series House Hunters, which I have never seen.
What? You need to remedy this.
Okay.
This is the House Hunters is the best worst show that exists. I mean, if you want to raise your blood pressure at least 20 points, like you watch that show. It's Hunting Houses. Thank you for doing beautiful work.
Excellent.
They've also got They See Me Rollin'.
Yes, that's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I started listening from the beginning, and so I haven't gotten very far, but that seems fun. And then there are also all the podcasts that were already on the network. I want to give a special shout out to Please Don't Send Me Into Outer Space, whose host gave a shout out to us recently. I forwarded you that audio.
You did. And I was like, I am so sorry, y'all. I should have sang, but it would have been bad.
Yeah. So Joel said that he listened to the whole episode of Hold Me Closer, Necromancer, waiting for one of us to sing the song. And finally I did at the end, and then I didn't sing it very well. So I think next time I'm in their neck of the woods, which I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I think it's in California someplace, I will challenge them to go to karaoke, and it will be fun. Tell me, why'd you have to go and make things so complicated? I see the way you're acting like you're somebody else gets me frustrated. Lies like this, Anyway, so thanks to all of them. Go to see Ear Trumpet Audio on Facebook or on Twitter, or on the website, eartrumpetaudio.com. We have a Patreon account, patreon.com/eartrumpet, and you can pledge there and get access to bonus audio from us. And it's awesome.
So, Jacob.
Yes.
Guess what?
What?
You're coming to visit me soon.
That is going to be, I'm looking forward to that so much.
It's going to be fantastic. So, here's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
We need a really, really good book to talk about.
We do.
And I don't know if it's got to be a good or a really bad good. But I was thinking we could leave this up to some listeners. Let them decide.
Sure.
So if anyone has a book that they want us to read and a really good reason why you want us to read it, fuck it, I'll read it.
Okay. I'm going to preemptively veto one book in particular. And this is me being selfless, because I actually would be up for reading this book, but I know that you would most likely not. And this is the sequel to Boys Don't Knit.
Oh, you hate me. I would hate that book. Oh, my God.
So I'll preemptively veto that one.
I'm sorry, redacted family. No.
But any other suggestions, you can tweet them or Facebook them or whatever you want. And we will.
I'll just read it.
Look them over.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we'll just read it.
I'll just read it. I don't give a shit.
We'll just read it.
If it's really bad good, like really bad good, like it would make a good conversation. Like that goes to the top of the list. But really, just I need some new stuff on my Kindle. So recommend some stuff. I don't care.
Yeah. And if you're a Patreon and you want to suggest something for us to do and record and release to you only, let us know that as well.
I will totally do shit for money. Yeah, like not a problem.
Yes, me too. Very good.
If anybody ever wants me to do a like I will sing "Hold Me Closer, Necromancer" if you give me some money.
Yeah.
But be prepared. It's not going to be pretty. We could also at some point read Necromancing the Stone.
Yes, I do want to do that sometime.
Which is baller. And yeah, there's some other books. But really, just whatever you guys want, I'll read.
It's a deal. So guess what, Carrie?
What?
I love you like crazy.
I love you like crazy.
All right.
Oh, we're the goofiest.
Chill out, what you yelling for? Lay back, it's all been done before. And if you would only let it be, you will see I like you the way you are. When we're driving in your car and you're talking to me one-on-one, but you become somebody else round everyone else. You're watching your back like you can't relax. You're trying to be cool, but you look like a fool to me. You come over unannounced, dressed up like you're something else. Where you are and where it's at, you see, you're making me laugh out when you strike a pose. Take off all your preppy clothes. You know you're not fooling anyone when you become somebody else round everyone else. You're watching your back like you can't relax. You're trying to be cool, but you look like a fool to me. Tell me, why'd you have to go and make things so complicated? I see the way you're acting like you're somebody else gets me frustrated. Life's like this, and you fall and you crawl and you break and you take what you get and you turn it into honesty. You promised me I'm never gonna find you fake it. No, 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 chill out, what you yearn for. Lay back, it's all been done before. And if you could only let it be, you will see somebody else round everyone else. You're watching your back like you can't relax. You're trying to be cool, but you look like a